up your engine!
Well, if you listen to Scotty and don't want to buy one of these expensive money pit cars, but you want to lease, here's a list of some luxury cars and SUVs that you can lease for under $400. Of course, you got to have good credit for it. If you got crappy credit, it's not going to exist for you. But one is the 2020 Mercedes-Benz A-Class, $349 a month for 36 months. You can lease a 2020 Volvo XC40 for $329 a month for 36 months. You can lease a 2020 Jaguar XE for $369 a month. I definitely advise this one. If you want to get a Jaguar, please don't buy one. Lease the thing. Get it out of your system. You can lease a 2020 Genesis G70 for $399 a month for 36 months and zero do-it signing. They're trying to get these things out there. You know, they are fun to drive. And like I say, they're well-built cars until they get 100-something thousand miles on them. So if you put on a lot of miles, why not lease one? A 2020 Lexus ES for $359 a month for 36 months. Now, this one kind of surprises me. 2020 Volvo S60 for only $289 a month. They're trying to get those things out there. I guess they got a bunch of them laid up they can't sell. And if you want a Jaguar SUV, you can lease a 2020 Jaguar E-Pace for $389 a month for 36 months. But you do have to put $39.95 down. They're not giving them away. You have a BMW hankering, but you have common sense and not going to buy one and lose all that money for depreciation over years. You can lease a 2020 BMW 2 Series for $389 a month, 36 months and $39.99 do-it signing. So there are luxury cars and SUVs you can lease for less than $400 a month if you check around. And I mean, personally, if I was going to do Lexus, I'd buy a Lexus and keep it forever. But the Jaguars and Mercedes, hey, definitely lease them. Don't buy them. Pit Viper says, Scotty, how do cars calculate oil life when they got that oil life monitor and tell you when to change your oil? Well, of course, like everything else in society, it's done by microprocessors, by computers. They compare everything. The speed you're driving, the temperature outside, how many miles you've driven, how much time has gone by. It calculates all kinds of stuff and then theoretically comes out with when you should change your oil. Because, as I've told people for years, highway driving, when you're going 65, 70 miles an hour, the wear and tear on your engine is about 10% what it is in stop and go city driving. So, if you say, get in your car and drive to California and it's 3,000 miles, that's like putting 300 miles on the oil. So you don't need to be changing. It won't be dirty. If you've ever done anything like that, change your oil before you drive to California. Check it when you get there. You'll probably find it's still whistle clean because it's only like 300 miles of stop and go traffic. It doesn't do any damage to it. The computers take all this into consideration. Now, if it's a system that's well made, great. But unfortunately, the systems are crap. I've had customers, especially with cars like GM, where it'll tell them to change the oil too often because it breaks, or it never tells them to change the oil. I had a customer with one, and it had about a quart of oil left. I said, when did you change the oil? Well, the machine never told me to change it, so I never did. You can't trust those things. You always want to write down time and mileage, too, so you got a backup to know that, hey, if you've gone 5, 6, 7, 8,000 miles, time to change it, or you got to change it once a year anyway. Keep a backup. Don't trust those things, you know? I mean, it's to the manufacturer's advantage that your car wears out faster, so they'll sell you another one. So I don't trust those machines all that much. Mitsubishi for Life says, Scotty, on my 92 Galant, I noticed the front headlights aren't bright and my dash light flickers. I haven't got the battery alternator checked. Thanks. Start there. Have the battery load tested and the alternator. If either one of them is weak, it's going to make the headlights dim, especially when you're at an idle. But it can also be you got grounding. If you have bad grounding, you have to have power, positive electricity, but also ground so the circuit is completed. And if the ground's weak, you'll often get dim headlights. So if the battery and alternator check out okay, start checking the ground wiring for the headlight system next. Because the ground wires, they get old. That's a really old vehicle. It's a 92. Could easily be corroded ground wire. You take them off. It's a memory paper, make the metal shiny, bolt it on. You might find they work perfectly normal again. Madman said, why is the new 0W16 so expensive? It's like I'm buying liquefied gold. $50 for 5 quarts. Every time new stuff comes out, it's always more expensive. It's just a game. They want to recoup their investment, make a profit. And if it's new and popular, of course they're going to charge more for it. Just like when there's a limited amount of cars out there, like the new mid-engine Corvettes, they're supposedly under 60 grand. The cheapest one I've seen anybody buy was $76,000. Charge a premium. Same thing with the Ford and their Mustang E's that aren't Mustangs, they're electric SUVs. They're asking a prime thing for them because it's new. They think they're going to be popular, so they're going to charge more money for them. That's just how it goes. As time goes on, those things are good cheaper. I've actually seen $30 for 5 quarts at Walmart when I was pricing around the other day. So price around with that stuff too. Just don't go and buy it the first time you see it, because all kinds of companies make them. Don't just get stuck one thing on your mind. All kinds of companies making that new 0W16. Well, buy wherever you can find the best price. And the competition will come in and it'll all come down. Joey Banana says, hey, it's so humid down there in Texas. The cars rust because of humidity. Up in New York, we get rust from the salt on the road, but it's so humid down there in Houston. I went down there for a baseball game once. Do they rust down there too? You know, it's a very good question, but here's the true answer. I just worked on a 16-year-old Ford Expedition. Frame was solid. There was no rust on it. Vehicle spent its whole life in Houston. They didn't take it to the ocean to drive on the beach where the salt water is, which would eat it up. On the other hand, let's say you got a car. My sister-in-law moved to Houston from Buffalo, New York, right? She had a Ford Pinto. It had started to rust up in Buffalo. She brought it down here to Houston. And then the humidity finished it off, because once rust starts, it won't stop. One day she opened the door of that Pinto and the door fell off on the ground. We put it back on, then she climbed in the other door to drive it around. So once the rust starts, you don't want to move to a humid place. If it had started, you want to move to New Mexico, Arizona, someplace that it's super dry, and then the rust wouldn't continue to rust too much. But if you take a vehicle that's already rusty and bring it to Houston, yes, it will rust. But if it spent its whole life here and you didn't take it to the beach in the salt water, no, it won't have any rust. I got a 26-year-old Celica, no rust. 19-year-old Lexus for my wife, no rust. They won't rust if they don't start. Taha says, Scotty, what he says a better van, Kia versus Honda? Well, that's a real toss-up. I'm not a Korean car fan, but the Honda Odyssey vans have had so many problems with transmissions going out, with the cams wearing inside the engine, that I'd never buy one of those. I mean, hands down, I'd throw them both down the toilet, and I'd buy a used Sienna van, because I've seen them with 500,000 miles on them. The Toyota Sienna vans can run forever. With those two, it'd be a toss-up, because normally I'd say, well, the Hondas are much better than the Kias. But in terms of the vans, the Honda vans, they've had a lot of problems over time. Like I said, transmission, engine problems, also air conditioning problems. And I'd never buy a Honda Odyssey van, and I wouldn't buy a Kia van either. I'd get a Toyota in that respect. At 19 says I got P420 on my 2001 Camry. I know it's for inefficient catalytic converter. What should I do? Well, if it runs okay, I wouldn't do anything. I had a customer drive one of them that way for 5 years, and after 5 years, the light went off by itself. It just means the cat is working inefficiently. You can watch my video, how to clean catalytic converters. Do that, try a little cleaner, that might help it. But if it doesn't run right, odds are you're gonna have to replace the catalytic converter. But at least that's an old one, it's 01. So you don't have to go buy the super expensive Toyota one. You could get an aftermarket one like a Walker Cat. Walker's a big company that makes mufflers and exhaust systems. They make catalytic converters. You could get one and put one of those on if you wanted. They work perfectly fine. On the new ones, you pretty much have to buy the dealer original equipment, factory ones. But on those old ones, the universal ones that Walker makes, they work perfectly fine. I've changed guys' cars out with those, and they worked fine when I was done. But try cleaning it, and what the heck, if it runs okay otherwise, I would just ignore it, like my customer did for 5 years. Still ran fine. James Holt says, Scotty, can you explain how and why you should change the rear differential fluid? Does it help with torque? Well, it's just because of dirt and friction. Any fluid that's going inside gears, eventually as pieces of the gears wear, little pieces of metal, the fluid gets contaminated, then it will eat the seals up and eat the gears up. You don't want to ruin it. Now, you take an earlier question, guy in Niagara Falls, Ontario, that had a Honda all-wheel drive. That rear differential is very complex. It has various clutches in them. If you don't change that fluid every 30,000 miles and use only the Honda fluid that's made only for those differentials, it'll ruin the automatic clutches inside, and you're going to have to rebuild it. So it's not hard. They all have drain bolts and then fill bolts, except for the Americans that are so cheap now. You got to take the whole rear end cover off, and then all the fluid comes off, then put the cover and gasket on, and then refill it. I mean, they're so cheap the way they make American stuff nowadays. But most of the foreign stuff, they just got a drain plug and a fill plug, and it's so easy to do. And I do it on the Hondas every 30,000 miles. Other vehicles you can get away with doing it every 70, 80,000 miles. You want to do it just to keep dirt and friction out.
So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.